Okay, what about China then?
Hello everybody, my name is Leszek Ślazyk. In France they call me Ślazyk. I prefer that. I started to visit China in 1994. It was a horrible place. Then I went to India and could go back to China easily and quite happy. And this is kind of curse because I know what happened between 1994 and 2022. For some people, this is unknown period of time, and they are not aware of the changes which happened in China. Startups in China or entrepreneurial state. China is entrepreneurial state. They probably all read Matsukato and got this lesson. So the base of the development in China probably was quite similar to this of Israel. Challenges. A lot of challenges, quite different because China, if we consider 1978, it was almost 1 billion people. But before 1978, we have a very important period of time. The beginning of 19th century, China gives to the world about 27% of GDP. Then we have opium wars. Then we have uprisings, then we have interventions, then we have wars with Great Britain, with Russia, and with, of course, with Japan. Then we have revolution of 1911. 1911, then we have period of 1920s and 1930s, wars with warlords. Then we have 1937, which means aggression of Japan. Japan invades China and makes similar things which were done by Nazis in Poland. Then we have 1945. Japan gives up. Then we have 1945 till 1949 civil war. Then we have Mao. And then we have from 1966 to actually 1976, we have Cultural Revolution. And then we have 1978, which means country after about 130, 140 years of permanent turmoil. And millions, tens of millions of victims, and country which was absolutely destroyed, ruined, completely. So you have to take under consideration whatever you think about China. It's 1978. We have about close to 1 billion people, and from this number, over 80% of illiterates, and then 86% of population living in villages, poor villages, no education. So the first idea about the changes in China was brought in 1963 by Prime Minister Zhou Enlai, and it was called Four Modernizations, 1963. And of course, because Zhou Enlai was not strong enough, he had to give up with the idea, and this idea came back to China in 1978. Deng Xiaoping brought again 4 modernizations. Basics: agriculture, industry, defense, science and technology. Of course, agriculture, because you have to understand also, for example, people from the generation of my parents in China, they know what it means hunger. In 1960 till 1961 in China died over 48 million people of hunger. Right? We have no such experiences in Europe. We have no such experiences in the United States and in developed area of the world. So agriculture was very important, and especially for Deng Xiaoping, he started to make some reforms in 1950s, but also he lost with Mao Zedong. Industry, which is very clear, defense, which is very clear, science and technology. 1968, again, we have the bright Chinese program of reforms of the education, which was called 963. Chinese, they like numbers and they like to dress everything in numbers. 963. It meant 9 children of 10, they go to the primary school, 5 classes. Then 6 children of those 9 graduate the school. Then 3 of them, they go upper. And it was the ambitious plan of China in 1978. Last year, there were 10,500,000 graduates of the Chinese universities. So you can compare. And what is very important, actually from nowhere we got the information last year that at least 3 Chinese universities are counted as the best worldwide universities from first 20. Of course, first 10 are Americans and UK universities, but in the next 10 there are 3 to 4 Chinese universities. So the quality of this education, quality of science is definitely improving. Then the character of the state. In China we have such equal that state is power, power is economy. And this is quite a different concept of the state than, for example, Western countries. Economy goes with power with the state, but actually is independent, right? If Coca-Cola is going to set up new factory somewhere, it does. If Geely is going to buy Volvo, it does, but with communication with the general government. And it goes like that because the state creates all the environment for the company like Geely to work properly and to have enough resources and power to be able to take over Volvo and use it. Not destroy it, use it. So we have state, which is power, which is economy. And then we have this kind of idea of the state since Deng Xiaoping, because when Mao was in power, this state was just involved in the permanent revolution. And since Deng Xiaoping, and exactly since 1992, which is very important, since 1992, China started to be more open to the world. But at that time, as I said, the only advantage of China were poor people. No education, nothing more, just mass of poor people, already over 1 billion of poor people. So they were used to do very simple jobs. And it lasted since 1992. Then there was a switch of the power to Jiang Zemin, then to Hu Jintao. And within these 2 periods of time, we could see the development of different areas of industry. Of course, we could see also some development of science and economy. Science and education, but mainly at that time, a huge number of Chinese people just went abroad to United States, to UK, to Germany, to Japan, to Australia, and started their studies, also their academic career, etc. Then, since 2012, we have the era of Xi Jinping. And of course, we can think that Xi Jinping is an omnipotent person with abilities to create and control everything. It's not true. It's just the face of the new movement in China, which we know, for example, from the programs, from the projects like Made in China 2025. It was clear at the time of Summer Olympics in Beijing that this model of economy, which was introduced by Deng Xiaoping, has his limits. You cannot produce cheap t-shirts and some shoes to develop economy and also to develop country. So they started to think about the products which have a much bigger added value than cheap t-shirts. And of course, during Hu Jintao, they started to produce, for example, computers, right? One of the first companies we didn't know how it would develop in the future was Lenovo, which overtook some part of IBM and started to produce laptops. Today, Lenovo is the biggest worldwide producer of laptops. And that was also the time when China started to focus on the more developed products. They started to focus on environment. They started just to move all the dirty production out of the country, and you can find this production, for example, in India, not in China. But they started to think also about the need of innovation. What was the weakness of China? It was a lack of innovation. Why? I would like to repeat, 1978, we have just uneducated mass of people. Then we have to build everything within a few decades, all the educational system on the basis what was left after all those turmoils. For example, in 1980, it was already counted that there is over 1 billion of Chinese people. You know how many lawyers was in China at that time? We have 1 billion people. How many lawyers? 2,000. People who said about themselves that they are lawyers. Yeah. So how you can build your system of education for lawyers if you have 2,000, mainly very old people with unknown knowledge, unknown level of their skills, education, etc. So actually, it happened very fast, rapidly. Since 2012, we can see big change in the area of Chinese export, of course, and we can see, and I'm surprised, how much changed the value of Chinese production, of Chinese manufacturers, because they started to develop small, independent, private companies which could bring the idea, which could bring the new ideas which can be used by bigger companies. And for example, we use 10 years ago even, we wouldn't believe that we would use any famous Chinese brand on the daily basis, right? But today, if you choose, for example, smartphones, we have choice one American company, one Korean company, and the rest is Chinese. And American company is manufacturing its iPhones in China, and that's it. So what was very important, and I could observe this, that the state of China started to follow the idea of the Sea Fund. So they started to organize a lot of events, a lot of conferences, a lot of events where they could attract young people, let them present ideas, and then just put the money. They didn't know which idea will bring the good result. How they could know? Because they didn't know nothing about technologies, right? So instead to bet on something, what is attractive or not, they started to bet on everything. And maybe it sounds like a joke, but it worked like this. For example, we started, I will tell you about that case later. We entered the small city, 2 million people, small city Foshan in Guangdong province, because we got information that they develop Internet of Things. Okay. We visited this place, we started to talk with municipal government, with people involved, and we got the picture that about 2016, somebody from Beijing came to Foshan, to municipal government, and then they just said, comrades, we heard that here in Foshan you do something interesting. Yes, comrade, we do furniture. We are the global center for furniture manufacturing. Well, so you know, probably from tomorrow you will switch to Internet of Things. Have you heard about that? No. So you take some books, read, learn, you will do. And it sounds funny, but almost it looked like that. That, for example, Greater Bay Area with Shenzhen, Hong Kong, and Canton, it was just pointed by the central government as a potential Silicon Valley for China. And some officials went from the Beijing to cities. They pointed, you do this, you do that, you do that, and they started to do. And it took just 6 years, and there is a result. You want to find Internet of Things, you go to Foshan. If you want to find virtual reality or data science, you go to Nansha. If you want to find a combination of these elements plus hardware, you go to Shenzhen. You can find everything there. So this is also the result of investment and of the idea using a little bit of force. For example, if you have a technology company in China, and if you don't spend the fixed percentage of your income for R&D, you are cut off any tax relaxation, and you cannot get tax returns. So you have to spend. You have to spend, you have to use, you have to find people who will use this money. So that's why within just like 12 years, China became one of the biggest places all over the world with money for R&D, with money for innovation, and with money for science. It sounds also for us funny that leader of the country, like Xi Jinping, he said last year that China, till 2035, will be the world center for innovation and science. He just said that. And our reaction is laugh, right? But looking at the changes at the tables of value of universities, looking at the percentage of sightings of Chinese scientists, we should start to be worried about that probably it can be done. So there's another picture to show what is the number of scientists and number of money which are given for R&D comparing to GDP, and China is still growing. The number of scientists is still low, but we have now 1,400,000,000 people. And if we look at this map of China, this is the area of Europe, and 1,400,000,000 people. From this number, 500 million still suffer poverty. And this is the new target of Beijing, of Chinese government. They are focusing now on the poor people, because this is what disappears slowly in places like Shenzhen or Shanghai. Poor people, they have energy, they want to earn, they want to get more. If you are third generation living in Shanghai, there is no such energy. There's no need to earn millions if it's enough to earn something what covers rent and your pleasures. So all the focusing of the concerning education and development of science goes to the interior from the center of China. But since we started to be interested in setting up the startup in China, we choose the Greater Bay Area, which is here, Hong Kong, Canton, Macau, and there is some number of cities like, for example, Dongguan or Foshan or Nansha. What was surprising for us was the number of hubs and number of industrial parks focused on startups. What was very surprising that in every city we could manage within 1 or 2 days meetings with the heads of really big hubs or really big industrial parks. For example, there is industrial park in city Dongguan. This is a city between Hong Kong and Guangzhou, Canton, where there is a R&D center for Huawei. So only this center hires 25,000 people. They have even tram line in this R&D center. It's just town. And we could meet such people. It was very easy to find out what are the potentials. And what was very important, it was very easy to find places when you have almost everything. So buildings, laboratories, access, for example, to supercomputers, apartments for employees, and mainly, usually, at least for 1 year for free. So the whole infrastructure ready. Just lack of brains. So they focused on the people from abroad, but also on the people from China. And there is a really massive number of projects in every big city in China. You can find such project when they attract retired people from abroad. So, for example, when I was in Suzhou is a little bit over Shanghai. There was a project for retired scientists. For the beginning, they could get from the municipal government like 20 million RMB to start, and then whatever they wanted to get, they got. Especially that in Suzhou, they opened the Nano Center City. It was called Nano Center City, and biotechnology and semiconductors. So if you got some achievements in your scientific career at the field of semiconductors, biotechnology, nanotechnology, you are very welcomed. I met ex-professor of Columbia who got for the beginning for his project of gallium natrium semiconductors, he got for the beginning like 40 million USD for the development. And we visited this place with scientists from Poland, and they couldn't believe that in one laboratory they have more instruments, more machines and devices than in whole Poland. Just everything new, and with prices from sky. But this is it, right? The local government is pushed by central government. You have to be innovative. So money is not the problem. The problem is how you manage this situation. So anyway, we were focused on VR and AR. So we started to look for the closer relationship with Foshan, because Internet of Things also was connected to VR and AR. And gosh, I was slimmer. 2018, we signed contract agreement with the local government. 2019, we just opened at the beginning. We started with one company. Then we decided to set up a so-called cluster. It was called High Tech Zone, and it was supposed to be a cluster for Polish innovation companies. My own idea was like that: if we bring from Poland to China young people, then we put them into such environment, they will start to think differently, because they will know, they will see, they will experience something what is unexpected. Because what is special in such areas in China, there is a huge number of hubs, and then huge number of startups. Then you have a lot of events, you have a lot of communications. Then you can just watch what other people do and connect your ideas with their ideas. But there are pros and cons, of course. What is recently very important? If you work in China, there is a stronger and stronger IP protection law. It is funny because it comes from the reason is that more and more Chinese companies, they have something what they would like to protect. So, for example, if companies like Tencent or Huawei or other manufacturers, they develop a lot of new ideas. For example, in blockchain, as far as I know, there is over 50% of innovations in 2021 came from Chinese companies. Software and hardware. What I mean, software and hardware. There is a lot of companies which develop software, but there is massive number of companies which develop hardware. So whatever you do in digital world, you can change into mechanical world. And manufacturers, we have to remember that China right now is the largest manufacturer in the world, and actually you can do almost everything there. Whatever you invent, what you imagine, what you can draw, what you can put to CAD, you can just change into the real object. And market, 1,400,000,000 people, and the government of China is focused on development of the society, and in China means more money. Just development means more money. So you have more and more consumers. So the local market it is competitive, but it's huge. Then venture capitals, a lot of money coming from the simple story that in China, for the private person, there's a very limited scope of any kind of investment. So if the stock market is not very stable, so more and more people want to put the money into venture capitals, private money, and these money are big. Because, for example, if you compare to price of the apartment in Shenzhen, for the square meter in Shenzhen right now, you have to pay like 35,000 zloty. So for the plate for the car in the Shanghai, you have to pay more than 60,000 zloty, and you have to win the bet. So money for private people in China, it's not a problem, and there is growing number of different venture capitals. And what is important, mainly those people who run venture capitals, they have experience from Hong Kong, from Singapore, from United States, and from Australia, and Japan, of course. Then events and contests. This is also a very important thing, that the number of events and contests and the number of participating companies, investors, and inventors is really, really big. And global activity. Like in case of our company, if you would stay in Poland, you would never get customers from Japan, from Hong Kong, from United States, China. In some cases are in the center of the world. So it's much easier to get in touch with global customers. And cons, of course, rising costs. This is the big problem, rising costs of everything. But it goes along the shortage of specialists. China has a huge problem with specialists only in robotics. They say right now that they are short of 6 million people to develop robotics and automatization of industry. Unclear decision-making process. That's the point which you said. In China, if you don't contact the decision maker, you waste your time. So you have to do everything to go to general, not to his soldiers, because you can spend years and have no results. So fortunately, we have WeChat, so any just slight contact can be finished by exchanging WeChats. Then we can send directly to this person informations. But this is like just a different mindset, different ideas. So you can sometimes wait for decision of this decision maker for years. Then in one day, he just says, yes, I want. And that's it, right? So this is very, very unclear. And China is not certain anymore. Recently, we've experienced zero COVID policy, which means that today we can meet, but maybe tomorrow not. And we don't know. This is the situation when it's really difficult to conduct any activity, especially complicated, like, for example, in our case, AR products. But since I spent already some time in China, I know that everything must be considered in a longer perspective. Today is like it is, but tomorrow will be different. What we have to remember that from this, what I said you about education, about poverty, etc., we have, for example, such unicorn like TikTok, which is the largest one. And because I couldn't find the data from this year, these are data from 2020, and here's a funny story. The second one is Didi. So I can tell you that Didi doesn't exist anymore, because it was found that they follow the idea of Uber concerning relation with drivers and with taxes. So after the first slap they got and had to pay penalty, they didn't listen. And they went to the stock in United States, the New York Stock Exchange, and they got a slap second time, and it was the final slap. So Didi exists in just very small version, but because this is the competitive market, so the customers were not left alone. At least 3 companies now share the place of Didi. But you can see what is the potential of just few Chinese unicorns, and what happens when those unicorns changes into the major companies, like Tencent, for example. And this is actually everything what I wanted to tell you about China and innovations there. Thank you very much.